Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. And speaking of Bachelor news, we have a Bachelor paternity trial to continue to talk about. That's right. The appeal has been submitted from Clayton Echard's accuser, Laura Owens. She's the petitioner. He is the respondent. And she, of course, filed a parenting plan and got a lot of bad press about him online, and then wanted to decide she was no longer pregnant, which would have been fine if she ever proved she was pregnant in the first place. She, again, said she had miscarriages after 20 weeks, which would be a stillbirth. She never even had an ultrasound, at least an ultrasound that was hers. She changed the date and time and location of Planned Parenthood visits. And throughout this process, we've covered and uncovered the truth and exposed the fraud. Well, now she's filing a lengthy appeal. I'm not going to read all of it. I'm going to share snippets, but I'm going to tell you where you can read it for yourself. This appeal is from her attorney, who I guess is good at doing lengthy things. He likes to keep it long, 73 pages. Now, some days we have the time. Today's not one of those days, getting an extremely late start on the day. A lot going on. So if you want to read the whole thing, if you're a law nerd, go to victimsoflauraowens.com. They have done such a great job of compiling all the information. I don't know if they have a donation page, but if they do, give them a donation. They pay for these documents and then give them to everyone so that we can have some transparency about what's going on. So I already shared the lengthy notice of appeal, of which I was accused of being a fraud and a liar because I called it a lengthy appeal and it was just the notice of appeal. Although the notice of appeal was lengthy, now the actual appeal is lengthy. Everything's lengthy. The amount of motions for lunch and motions for this and suing people if they steal your likeness and copyright. I mean, it's just like, it's too much. We're done. We're over it. Boring. Move it on. Let's do something new. We're bored. But either way, I'll share a few snippets, as it were. I'll share some of your comments, and you can make whatever judgments you want to make. Clayton Echard's side will offer, I guess, a response to this appeal. I don't know. They have 40 days or something like that. So just getting into the beginning, let's read 1 or 2 pages from the beginning introduction. I won't get into the nitty gritty because why? We'll wait for the appeals court to issue their ruling. Introduction. This case presents some bizarre, interesting, frightening, and salacious facts. The story involves sex, celebrity, even an alleged fake pregnancy. And by the way, the sex involved was oral variety. The case, according to Clayton, the cast includes an inexperienced trial judge who apparently broke the law to ensure a Pyrrhic victory for a famous litigant from a popular TV show. Now, again, I'm state school educated, business degree. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing Pyrrhic right. I don't know what it means, but I do have the old googs in a Pyrrhic victory. Am I pronouncing that right? Let's see what they have to say. How do you say this? Is there a pronunciation key? How do I play the pronunciation? Who cares? Whatever. Is a victory that inflicts such a devastating toll on the victor that it is tantamount to defeat. Such a victory negates any true sense of achievement or damages long-term progress. The phrase originates from a quote from Pyrrhus of Epirus, whose triumph against the Romans in the Battle of Asculum in 279 BC destroyed much of his forces, forcing the end of his campaign. So are they trying to say that the victory was just symbolic and that both sides got a loss out of this? It seems like a pretty big victory to me. Maybe I'm misunderstanding his big boy words. At the end of the day, the strange facts of this case are almost irrelevant to this court's task, answering a very simple yes or no question. Do the rules of procedure matter, or can the rules be casually tossed aside when they require an undesirable result? Now, before I go any further, what I'm hearing from people that know family law, now we know that her attorney is an expert in copyright law and how to troll people online, but we don't know if he's an expert on winning, and we don't know if he's an expert on family law. What I'm being told from multiple family law attorneys is that the judge has a discretion for a lot of their rulings, and by that I mean Laura Owens' attorney is going to argue this Rule 26 thing. This is his sort of bondage, ball gag, leather-bound thing that he likes. Rule 26. That's his safe word, right? Rule 26. It gets you out of anything. I don't know anything about it. I don't know if he's right or if he's wrong, and that's why I'm not going to offer any opinions on that. What lawyers are saying that have spoken to me is that he doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell with what's going on here. Other people have said, could it be that the appellate judges, if they're three men of the boomer variety, and I don't even mean boomer by age, but more by lifestyle, if they have no idea what pregnancies look like because when they had a baby, they waited in the waiting room watching golf with the doctors, which apparently is what my father did when my mom was giving birth. I should say what my father did when my mom was giving birth to my sister because my father wasn't there when I was born. Hey, that's why I'm in comedy. The point of what I'm trying to say is, if you have judges that don't know much about the pregnancy process, could they be swayed by some quack science or quack statements? I don't know. I don't know if any of that matters here, to be quite honest, if they're just going over the rules. So he says this rhetorical question answers itself. Of course, the rules adopted by the Arizona Supreme Court matter. Like all other statutes and regulations, procedural rules carry the full force of law. All judges, all lawyers, and all litigants must follow them, whether they agree with the rules or not. So he said the same thing to me. He said the same thing over and over and over. Rules matter. I stick by the rules, and it's a very, I think, myopic way of looking at the rules in the sense that in family court, there's a lot of he said, she said. There's a lot of discretion the judge has to make. There isn't a smoking gun a lot of the times. There's stuff that happens behind closed doors. There's interpersonal relations. So the judge has more discretion to make a judgment call versus like, here's the absolute fact of the case. So with that said, I don't think the question is, do the rules matter? It's how do all the rules factor into the judge's decision? Did the judge violate that in any way whatsoever? He continues, it is undisputed that did not happen here. The trial court ignored one of the clearest and arguably the single most important rule in all of civil litigation, the safe harbor provision of Family Law Rule 26. Rather than applying the safe harbor as the law requires, the trial court transformed it into the proverbial screen door on a submarine, a pointless, useless nullity. The obviousness of this legal error is surpassed only by the ease with which the court may correct it. So he goes on and he shares his statements of facts, her pregnancy claim, and all of that information. What I actually wanted to do is point people in the direction of other recaps because I can't cover this all. I don't even want to say this is above my pay grade. It's just like, I'm not going to give a recap of Spanish when I don't speak Spanish well. So yeah, I am not the source to get that information, but I do a good job, I think, of compiling what other people are saying. So Justice for Clayton Reddit has a written recap of the appeal and covers the different issues, which we can get into. What I found really interesting with regard to Rule 26 is what this commenter said yesterday. I'll leave the Rule 26 stuff to other more familiar with family law, though Rachel Juarez is the real deal. Rachel Juarez is the lawyer that Reality Steve has been speaking with and sharing on his show, who believes that he is absolutely in the wrong. So if she thinks that part of the appeal will fail, I'd bet she's right. What jumped out to me is how by claiming the Planned Parenthood is closed on Sunday thing was structural error, Internet Lawyer totally undermined Laura's criminal defense against potential perjury charges. This is interesting. In addition to some sort of due process violation, structural error generally means a mistake that was pivotal to the outcome of the ruling, contrasted with harmless error, which is a mistake that didn't ultimately affect the outcome. Internet Lawyer explicitly argues that Mata's ruling would, or at least should, have been different without the Planned Parenthood is closed on Sundays detail, because it was so crucial. But the standard for perjury is lying under oath about a material fact, a fact that goes to the heart of the issue, whereas one of her likely defenses against perjury charges would be that the thing she lied about was immaterial. In short, Internet Lawyer is making it one of the pillars of his argument that something Laura almost certainly lied about was extremely material, in fact, pivotal to the case. So what that means is, they did a great job of explaining this. She lied. I don't know if I have my soundbar ready to go for she lied, but she lied about a big moment in the case. She lied about where she went to Planned Parenthood. And that is a big, big deal.
She lied?
Because she claims initially she went to Planned Parenthood in Mission Viejo, and then she claims she went to Los Angeles. So the reason why her attorney claims this trial wasn't fair is because, as it turns out, the Los Angeles Planned Parenthood was closed on Sunday. Information that one would probably only get to know if they Googled it. So that's what's interesting. Because what's more important than this appeal is the possible criminal trial. Laura Owen's attorney doesn't care about the criminal trial because he's not going to represent her there. He cares about winning. And in pursuit of winning, it's pretty damning here that he's saying how pivotal of a detail that is that she lied about where she went to Planned Parenthood. And not only did she lie about where, she lied about the name she gave, and it just messy, messy stuff. It only refers to me that internet lawyer is pursuing his own agenda, trying to get some sort of precedent-setting, career-reinvigorating ruling with this appeal, rather than acting in Laura's best interest. Since even if the appeal succeeds, it won't vindicate her side of the story, nor will it save her money by getting out of paying Clayton's fees since she's apparently judgment-proof anyway. So that's so interesting. The internet is so smart. So interesting that even if they win, it's on a technicality. It's just on a technicality if they win this appeal. He doesn't care because he'll take that as a win. But the truth is she lied about where she went to Planned Parenthood, and she didn't even go. She says she went on a pseudonym, and then we find out through the expert witness that you have to provide an ID. Someone said, but does the Planned Parenthood Sunday issue really serve as the basis for her perjury, at least to the extent Matta referred to her to the county attorney? I'm running on low sleep, and my brain is blocking me from this. The Sunday thing specifically is relevant for perjury charges, or it's not relevant for perjury charges. She could be charged based on perjury for multiple things really here, but that's just an indicator and a very strong pillar to this case, as they mentioned. All right, so he goes on and on about how she sought medical confirmation of the pregnancy the next day at Banner Urgent Care, and how he invited her to take a pregnancy test, which she tested positive for. Again, nothing outside of those pregnancy tests showed she was ever pregnant. No ultrasounds. She faked her HCG levels. I tell you what, if she was pregnant initially and then quickly miscarried and has no paper trail after that, she would have known that and she wouldn't have continued to torment this guy. There is no scenario in which she comes out looking good here. In September of 2023, Laura and Clayton agreed to submit samples for DNA testing through a company called Ravgen.
I just took a DNA test.
A Ravgen representative, Brett, later indicated the tests were inconclusive because there was little to no fetal DNA found. Thus, there was insufficient genetic material to establish or exclude Clayton as the father within the 95% certainty requirement. Here's where it's so bananas, right? Because you're looking at this right here. Clayton needs to prove within the 95% certainty that he's not the dad. There is no babies. So he can't prove that because there's little to no fetal DNA. Laura's attorney uses that in their defense to say, look, he couldn't prove there was no paternity. And it's like, well, no shit, Sherlock, because there was little to no fetal DNA. So while that might be considered inconclusive, that's only inconclusive if there are actual babies. If there are no babies, it's inconclusive because they couldn't find the babies. And, we hear from experts, and I wish they had more time to talk about this, about how usually after you've given birth or after your pregnancy's over because of birth or abortion or miscarriage or whatnot, you're still going to have fetal DNA in your blood in most cases. I would love to see a study that showed how long people keep fetal DNA in their blood. Like if you were to test my wife, she would have fetal DNA in her blood. Her blood, it's fascinating the way the human body works. But, I think I could be wrong, but I think fetal DNA even lives in your fingernails. Like you can find it. It's there if you had a baby. So either way, they go through the bad news. I'm sure none of this. Okay, Laura had a blood test which showed her HCG levels were 102. Although the test confirmed Laura was still technically pregnant, the level of 102 is far lower than normal for a healthy pregnancy. What they don't share is that she lied. And actually sent me the document claiming she had a HCG level of 139 or 144,000 or whatever the number was, right? So this idea that she had a level of 102 that late in a pregnancy, it's not like your HCG doesn't go up and down like a roller coaster. And I would love an expert to talk about this. And again, none of this information even matters for the appeal, but it ramps up super fast, super early because your hormones change very drastically. It's exponentially growing. So yes, she should have been at 140,000. She was at a 102 because she, had a low level of HCG in her body from early on in the pregnancy and what would have been like 6 months into the pregnancy, which means there was no development of any baby whatsoever at any given time. That's just that. I mean, and we can't prove that, but certainly there would be reasons for her to prove she was pregnant if she actually were. So anyway, they did a great job of summarizing all of this, and I can't properly discuss it all here. David heavily focused his argument on Rule 26, but does mention Rule 11. It's concerned with the legitimacy of legal arguments presented in court. He states the Rule 1126 do not demand accuracy. They forbid a party from making knowingly false allegations of fact, but it's a low threshold to clear. He talks more about Rule 26, just a lot of Rule 26, which we're just not going to get into because it's not what we know. The trial court committed structural error requiring automatic reversal by performing an independent investigation of the facts. So he states that Laura could not provide a verified ultrasound, stating that Laura did have a sonogram, but it wasn't from the Scottsdale Medical Imaging Lab, as the document stated. It was from Planned Parenthood. He quotes Laura stating that she modified the image title and dates, but points out that Laura states the sonogram was otherwise genuine, states that she tampered with the ultrasound due to depression, stress, and anxiety. So even in his appeal, he has to show that his client's a liar.
She lied?
He also states that Laura did not use her real name for the appointment, because
she lied,
does not mention anywhere that Dr. Dean stated that Planned Parenthood requires proof of ID. So we never find out what name she used, and we never, look, they have security footage of Planned Parenthoods. Planned Parenthoods are, targets for, so violence and protests. Trust me, I guarantee, and I don't know this for a fact, but I guarantee that there would be, my opinion is that there would be security footage of whatever date she went. How many people go in and out of a Planned Parenthood on any given day? 150? I'll take that security footage and I'll confirm whether or not she went to them. Oh, she entered through the back window. He highlights that the change in location is important because Mission Viejo versus LA have different hours. He states that her testimony about going to Planned Parenthood in Mission Viejo on a Sunday was a non-issue. It was never a non-issue. She still had no records at the Planned Parenthood until Laura changed her story at trial. He claims that Dr. Deans could not be asked about LA Planned Parenthood because of this last-minute change. So where did Mata get that info from? This is not something to be proud of. Laura changed her story on stand, tamper with evidence. This is not a good look. Yeah, so he doesn't care if his client looks bad because he's willing to take the appeal, show that she's a liar and that none of her story is the truth, but he's got this weird technicality. He claims that this provides the judge did a secret independent investigation and looked at social media, claims it's impossible to know what website Mata looked at. And then this is the commenter saying this. You do realize that just a quick Google search is effective enough. She didn't need to go to any social media. He states that Fisk cannot say that Laura offered nothing but mere speculation and suspicion when alleging that Mata engaged in a secret undisclosed investigation. He says, regardless of the suspicions, this error demonstrates that Mata committed a structural error which violated her constitutional right to a fair trial. Yes, the hours of a public establishment is so incendiary that it could completely change the course of a trial. So look, I mean, if this did go to trial again, you would just pin her down with these questions. But, when you change what you're saying, like I get the argument he's trying to make here, but when your client lies so much, it's almost hard to chase her shadow. So it goes on and on, award of fees, He states that because Clayton never brought any motion seeking sanctions, that and by the way, the judge has the discretion to decide, so much that a lot of what he argues, I think, doesn't apply to family court. From what I've heard from people, they just say he doesn't have a great grasp on family court. It operates differently, which is why you need to get in family court. That's why you need to get an attorney who knows what they're doing, which, by the way, she probably tried to do. We've received information that she possibly sent, mass emails to lawyers to try to get their attention. And she found a bulldog who specializes in bullying people and calling the cops on witnesses. And, there's been multiple bar complaints against him. And we've received information from lawyers that believe that, that he might lose his license and that she might possibly go to prison. How insane is that we live in a reality where he may be disbarred and she may serve jail time? Absolutely insane. None of which I even care about because their worlds have no sort of bearing on my life. I'm living a happy-go-lucky life. I'm just covering this case. But with all the threats coming in, it would definitely help my cause if they were to receive the consequences of their actions. The consequences of committing fraud, lying to me, and in creating fake accounts and all the astroturfing and crazy manipulation she did. And the consequences of just not being an ethical attorney. I'd be okay with that. So anyway, that's it. They've got their appeal. We're going to see what Woodnick says in response to his objection to their appeal. And then 3 judges in Tucson, Arizona are going to decide. Now, appeals are overturned 10% of the time. So you would say, well, that means Laura has a 10% chance of quote unquote winning. Well, I mean, maybe, but also how many times do you do an appeal when you actually have a shot versus when it's a shot in the dark? I feel like most people that have a real appeal, to the decision have a real good shot because it's I don't want to say undeniable, but like something really important happened that they can appeal to. This isn't that. This is kind of like arguing a technicality, arguing a loophole. It's going to come down to the judge's interpretation of that. I mean, not a big deal. Either way, I've never cared about, don't get me wrong. If and when the appeal is denied because
she lied.
Denied because she lied. If and when it's denied, yeah, we're gonna pop champagne because it'll just further confirm that we're on the right side of the story. If that 10% of the chance that it's overturned, it's not going to change anything. She still lied. All of that is true. It's just less of a victory for Clayton in family court. It doesn't stop the investigators from doing their research. It doesn't stop her lawyer from trying to bully and intimidate us, which, by the way, talk about the Wizard of Oz. We've seen the man behind the curtain. Ooh. Boring. Let's move it on, folks. All right. If you like my content and want to join the Patreon, patreon.com/Dave Neal for the behind the scenes tea, which there's a lot of it. I'm sharing a lot of content behind the scenes every day. And also, if you want the free additional content, go to the Rush Hour podcast. Scan that QR code. I go live every day, twice a day. I have my podcast twice a day for your pop culture entertainment needs. Scan that QR code or just search the Rush Hour podcast with Dave Neal. We'll see you then.